Have you ever felt trapped in a cycle where your hard work never seems to reflect in your bank account? Meet Robert, a dedicated high school teacher who loved his students but felt the heavy weight of financial stagnation. He spent his days grading papers and his nights wondering how to break free from the traditional paycheck-to-paycheck grind. Robert didn't have a massive inheritance or a secret stash of gold. In fact, he had exactly $0 in savings. But what he did have was a pristine credit score and a relentless hunger for financial literacy and creative investing. He understood that, according to Robert Kiyosaki, the rich don't work for money. They make money work for them through assets. One afternoon, while driving past an old, slightly dusty car wash, Robert saw a for sale by owner sign hanging precariously. Most people saw a rundown business, but Robert saw a cash-flowing engine waiting for a new captain to take the wheel. He knew that buying a business usually required a massive down payment, something he simply couldn't afford at that moment. This is where the magic of seller financing comes into play, a strategy where the seller becomes the bank for the buyer. Robert began researching the mechanics of leverage, realizing that his most valuable currency wasn't cash, but his own credibility. He started by waking up at 5 a.m. every morning, a daily habit of high achievers, to master his business plan. He spent hours analyzing the car wash's potential revenue, looking at every water bill and every vacuum token collected. He realized the current owner, Mr. Henderson, was a retiring veteran who was tired of the daily maintenance and repairs. Mr. Henderson didn't want a complicated bank transition. He wanted a reliable person to carry on his legacy and his income. Robert knew that to win, he had to solve Mr. Henderson's problem while simultaneously solving his own need for an asset. This wasn't just about a car wash, it was about the psychological shift from being an employee to being a business owner. He recalled the words of Jim Rohn: "Profits are better than wages. Wages make you a living. Profits make you a fortune." Robert's first step was to approach Mr. Henderson not as a buyer, but as a student of the business he built. They met at a local diner, the smell of fresh coffee filling the air, as Robert listened to the history of the wash. He learned that the car wash had been a staple in the community for 30 years, but it lacked modern marketing. Robert showed Mr. Henderson his credit report, a shining 800 score that proved he was a man of discipline and trust. "I don't have the $200,000 right now," Robert admitted, "but I have the plan to make this business double its value." He proposed a structure where he would pay Mr. Henderson a monthly installment directly from the business's monthly profits. This is the core of seller financing. The seller receives interest and a steady stream of income without the daily headaches. Mr. Henderson was skeptical at first, wondering if a teacher could really manage a mechanical operation like a car wash. Robert countered this by presenting a 50-page business plan detailing AI-driven marketing and water recycling technology upgrades he planned to implement. He demonstrated how investing in oneself through education is the highest return on investment anyone can ever achieve in life. Robert's emotional storytelling touched Mr. Henderson. He saw a younger version of himself, full of dreams and grit, standing there. The negotiation wasn't just about numbers, it was about the transfer of trust from one generation of entrepreneurs to the next. They agreed on a price, but the down payment was the final hurdle that Robert had to navigate with pure creativity. Instead of cash, Robert offered a performance-based entry, where he would manage the site for free for 3 months to prove worth. This eliminated the risk for the seller and allowed Robert to get his hands dirty and understand the gears of the business. Every morning before school, Robert was at the car wash, scrubbing bays and fixing nozzles to show his commitment to the craft. He was living the burn the ships philosophy, leaving himself no choice but to succeed in this new, daunting venture. He optimized his daily habits, cutting out unnecessary expenses to ensure every spare minute was spent on his entrepreneurial education. He studied the chemistry of soaps and the physics of high-pressure pumps, becoming an expert in the mechanics of the trade. Success in business is often 80% psychology and 20% mechanics, and Robert was mastering both sides of that vital equation. Finally, the day came to sign the papers, a $0 down deal that would change the trajectory of Robert's life forever. The ink on the contract represented more than a purchase. It was the birth of a new financial reality built on leverage. With the keys in his hand and a $0 balance in his business account, Robert's real work began at dawn. He knew the first 90 days were critical to prove to Mr. Henderson and himself that this seller financing deal was viable. Robert didn't just want to manage a car wash, he wanted to revolutionize the local customer experience through precision and care. He started by deep cleaning every single bay, removing years of grime that the previous owner had simply overlooked. This is a classic example of sweat equity, substituting hard physical labor for the capital he didn't have up front. As he scrubbed, he listened to podcasts on creative financing and small business management to keep his mind sharp. He recalled a quote from Benjamin Franklin, "An investment in knowledge always pays the best interest." Robert noticed that many customers left because the soap didn't foam enough or the vacuums had weak suction power. He spent his first weekend meticulously recalibrating the chemical injectors to ensure a thick, luxurious foam for every wash. He understood that the secret of success is often doing the common things uncommonly well, as John D. Rockefeller once said. To save money on repairs, Robert spent hours on YouTube learning how to fix high-pressure seals and electric motors himself. Every dollar saved on a repairman was a dollar that stayed in the business to pay down the principal of the loan. Robert's daily habits included a walk-through audit, where he viewed the facility through the eyes of a first-time customer. He noticed the lighting was dim and unwelcoming at night, making female customers feel unsafe using the facility after dark. Without a budget for an electrician, he researched energy-efficient LED upgrades that he could install safely during his breaks. He was practicing the lean startup methodology, making small, incremental improvements that yielded immediate visual and functional results. The emotional storytelling of the brand began to change as locals noticed the teacher working tirelessly on his new venture. Teachers from his school started bringing their cars by, not just for a wash, but to support a colleague chasing a dream. Robert realized that his community was his greatest asset, and he began a teacher appreciation discount program immediately. This SEO-friendly strategy of hyper-local marketing started driving organic traffic without spending a dime on traditional ads. He created a simple loyalty card program, buy 5 washes, get the 6th free, a classic but effective retention tool. Robert was applying the compound effect described by Darren Hardy. Small choices plus consistency plus time equals radical results. By the end of month 1, the car wash saw a 15% increase in revenue just from improved cleanliness and lighting. Robert didn't touch a penny of that extra profit. He kept it in the business account as a margin of safety. He met with Mr. Henderson for their first monthly review, bringing a neatly organized binder of receipts and revenue reports. "Your credit score told me you were disciplined, but your hands are telling me you're a worker." This reinforced the high credit score strategy. It opens the door, but consistent action is what keeps the door open. Robert then moved to the digital phase, setting up a Google business profile to capture "car wash near me" searches. He took high-quality photos of the foaming soap and the bright LED lights to show the world his progress. He understood that in the modern age, if your business isn't on a smartphone, it doesn't exist to the younger generation. He encouraged customers to leave reviews, knowing that social proof is the ultimate currency in a digital marketplace. One evening, a pump failed, threatening to shut down 3 bays during a busy weekend rush. Instead of panicking, Robert used his solid business plan contingency funds to source a refurbished part overnight. He worked through the night, guided by a headlamp, to ensure the bays were operational by 7 a.m. the next morning. This level of grit is what separates the dreamers from the earners in the world of small business acquisitions. Robert was living the philosophy of extreme ownership, taking full responsibility for every mechanical failure and every customer complaint. He began to study the value-add potential of the property, looking at the unused corner for a potential pet wash station. He knew that adding multiple streams of income within one business is the key to accelerating the seller financing payoff. He wasn't just paying off a debt, he was building an empire, one vacuum token and one soap cycle at a time. Month 2 was approaching, and Robert was ready to implement the most significant change yet: automated payment systems. The transition from manual coin slides to digital tap-to-pay was the single most important upgrade in Robert's business plan. In a world where people rarely carry cash, Robert knew that friction in payment was the silent killer of local businesses. He spent the first week of month 2 installing sleek, weatherproof card readers on every single bay and vacuum. This small change acted as a catalyst. Suddenly, the average ticket price per customer increased by 30%. When people pay with a card, they tend to spend more time ensuring every inch of their vehicle is spotless. Robert was applying the psychology of spending found in books like Predictably Irrational by Darren Ariely. He wasn't just collecting money, he was collecting data, seeing exactly which hours were the busiest and which were dead. This data allowed him to implement happy hour pricing, discounts during slow Tuesday mornings to keep the machines running. Robert's daily habit shifted from scrubbing to management by exception, fixing only what the data said was broken. He recalled Peter Drucker's famous words, "What gets measured gets managed," and Robert was measuring everything. But then the entrepreneur's wall hit. The exhaustion of working a full-time teaching job and running a 24/7 business. There were mornings when the 5 a.m. alarm felt like a physical blow, and the weight of the debt felt suffocating. This is the emotional storytelling of the middle period, where most people quit because the novelty has worn off. Robert looked at his vision board in his home office, a simple corkboard with a photo of his future debt-free life. Motivation is what gets you started, but habits are what keep you going when the feelings fade away. To reclaim his time, Robert made a bold move. He hired his first part-time employee, a local college student named Alex. He didn't just hire a worker, he mentored Alex, teaching him the same financial literacy he was practicing himself. Robert understood that delegation is the only way to scale a business from a job to a true asset. As Steve Jobs said, it doesn't make sense to hire smart people and tell them what to do. We hire smart people so they can tell us what to do. With Alex handling the daily maintenance, Robert could focus on the high-level strategy of the car wash. He began negotiating with local car dealerships to provide pre-delivery washes for their used car inventory. This SEO-driven strategy of B2B partnerships provided a guaranteed baseline of revenue regardless of the weather. Robert was moving from a B2C, business-to-consumer model to a diversified B2B, business-to-business model. He realized that a rainy week could ruin his profit margins, but a contract with a fleet of vans kept the cash flowing. The emotional toll of the debt began to lift as the seller financing payments became a smaller percentage of his total revenue. Every month, he sat with Mr. Henderson, and the conversations shifted from "how do I fix this" to "how do we grow this?" Mr. Henderson started seeing Robert not just as a successor, but as a protege who was breathing new life into his legacy. Robert's investing habit extended beyond the car wash. He began putting a portion of the profits into low-cost index funds. He was building a wealth fortress, using one asset to fuel the growth of another, the true path to financial independence. He stayed humble, still driving his old sedan, avoiding the lifestyle creep that destroys most new business owners. While his peers were buying new cars with their raises, Robert was buying back his time and his future. He started a YouTube channel to document his journey, sharing the seller financing secrets he had learned. This created a digital asset that began to generate its own income through transparency and education. He was now a multipreneur, leveraging his physical business to create a digital presence. Robert remembered the law of reciprocity. By helping others understand finance, he was attracting more opportunities to himself. Suddenly, he was approached by another retiring business owner in the next town who had seen his progress. This owner didn't just want to sell, he wanted to offer Robert another seller-financed deal for a laundromat. Robert realized he had created a blueprint for acquisition that could be repeated over and over. His zero-down car wash was no longer a lucky break. It was the first domino in a massive financial chain reaction. He stood at the edge of his second year looking at a portfolio of assets that all started with a single yes from a stranger. Robert's life was now a masterclass in time management, balancing the classroom with a growing empire of boring businesses. He realized that the secret to scaling wasn't working more hours, but building systems that could run without him. He spent his evenings documenting every single process, from how to unclog a vacuum to the exact ratio of soap to water. This standard operating procedure, or SOP, became the holy grail of his business, ensuring quality stayed consistent 24/7. Robert was following the advice from The E-Myth Revisited by Michael Gerber: work on your business, not in it. He installed remote monitoring cameras that allowed him to check the status of the bays from his smartphone during lunch breaks. This digital oversight meant he could solve problems from miles away, giving him the freedom he had initially craved. One Tuesday, a sensor failed while Robert was teaching biology. He simply messaged Alex, who followed the SOP and fixed it in minutes. This was the emotional payoff, the moment Robert realized the business was no longer a second job, but a self-sustaining asset. He began to focus on cost optimization, negotiating better rates for biodegradable soaps to increase his eco-friendly appeal. SEO research showed that customers were looking for eco-friendly car wash, and Robert pivoted his marketing to match. He wasn't just a teacher anymore, he was a value-driven entrepreneur who listened to what the market was screaming for. With the car wash now producing a steady $5,000 in monthly net profit, Robert made a life-changing decision. He decided to take 100% of that profit and accelerate the seller financing payoff to Mr. Henderson. While the contract allowed for 5 years, Robert's discipline put him on track to own the business outright in just 30 months. He practiced the debt snowball method, focusing all his financial energy on destroying that primary liability. His daily habits remained frugal. He still packed his lunch and avoided the siren song of luxury car dealerships. "The goal is to be rich, not to look rich," he told his students during a spontaneous lesson on compound interest. He showed them a chart of how a $0 investment could turn into a multi-million-dollar portfolio through the power of leverage. This emotional storytelling in the classroom made him the most popular teacher in school. He was teaching real life. Meanwhile, the laundromat deal was finalized using the exact same seller financing model he used for the car wash. Robert was now a portfolio owner, diversifying his risk across different recession-proof service industries. He understood that whether the economy was up or down, people still needed clean clothes and clean cars. He started using AI-driven scheduling to predict when the laundromat would be busiest, optimizing his staff's hours. Robert's investing habits were now a well-oiled machine, with profits flowing into real estate investment trusts, or REITs. He was building a financial moat, protecting himself from any single point of failure in his life or career. The day finally arrived. The final payment to Mr. Henderson was scheduled for a sunny Friday afternoon. Robert met his mentor at the same diner where it all began, but this time the vibe was one of mutual respect and victory. As he handed over the final check, Mr. Henderson didn't just take it. He shook Robert's hand with tears in his eyes. "You didn't just buy a business, Robert," the old man said. "You saved a legacy that I thought would die with me." This was the soul of the story, the human connection that numbers and spreadsheets can never fully capture. Robert walked out of that diner as the 100% owner of a cash-flowing asset that he bought with $0 of his own money. The seller financing loop was closed, but the wealth creation loop was just starting to spin faster. He took a moment to stand in his car wash bay, feeling the mist of the water and the hum of the pumps. He thought back to the teacher with no savings and realized that man was a completely different person now. He had developed the Millionaire Mindset, a psychological framework of abundance, grit, and creative problem-solving. He realized that capital isn't just money in a bank, it's the trust you build and the value you provide to others. Robert decided it was time to scale his message, starting a mentorship program for other teachers wanting to escape the grind. He was turning his private victory into a public service, fulfilling the highest level of Maslow's hierarchy, self-actualization. But a new challenge was on the horizon, an offer to buy a massive 10-bay facility in a neighboring city. The opportunity to buy a 10-bay facility was the ultimate test of Robert's new systems over solos philosophy. Most people would be terrified of such a massive leap, but Robert had a secret weapon, a proven track record. Because he had successfully managed the first wash and paid off the seller, his social capital was at an all-time high. He didn't need to convince banks this time. He had local investors lining up to be part of his next acquisition. Robert was now applying the snowball effect of business. The first one is the hardest, but the rest gain momentum. He recalled a quote from Naval Ravikant, "Earn with your mind, not your time." He spent his weekends scouting the new location, analyzing traffic patterns and the competition's lack of digital presence. He realized that seller financing wasn't just a one-time trick, it was a professional tool for scaling without dilution. Robert approached the owner of the 10-bay site with a professional acquisition deck showing his past 30 months of success. He proposed a hybrid deal, a small down payment from his car wash profits and a 70% seller-financed note. This was the daily habit of a mogul, constantly looking for ways to maximize leverage while minimizing personal risk. His emotional storytelling now focused on community renewal, promising to turn the neglected site into a local gem. The deal was signed and Robert officially moved from small business owner to regional operator. He hired a general manager, another former teacher looking for a career change, to oversee the daily operations of both sites. Robert's investing habit had created a lifestyle of choice. He still taught biology because he wanted to, not because he had to. This is the definition of true financial freedom, the ability to do what you love on your own terms. He often told his students, "The world is full of money, but it is short on people who can solve problems." He encouraged them to look at every for sale sign not as a closing business, but as an opening opportunity. Robert's story began to spread beyond his town, becoming a viral example of what creative financing can achieve. He was invited to speak at financial conferences, sharing the stage with some of the speakers he used to listen to on podcasts. He stayed grounded by remembering the first day he scrubbed the bays in his waterproof boots and old t-shirt. Humility is the foundation of long-term success. Never forget the sweat equity that built your empire. He began a scholarship fund at his school, funded entirely by the quarters and tokens of his car washes. This full-circle moment proved that capitalism, when done with heart, can be a massive force for good. Robert realized that his greatest asset wasn't the car washes, the laundromats, or the real estate. His greatest asset was his mind, the ability to see a deal where others see a disaster. He continued to optimize, using AI to manage water pressure and energy consumption, cutting costs by another 10%. He was living the Kaizen philosophy of continuous, never-ending improvement in every area of his life. As he looked at his dashboard of businesses, he saw more than just numbers. He saw families supported and communities served. The Robert who had $0 in savings was now a ghost of the past, replaced by a man of substance and vision. If you are watching this and feeling stuck, remember that Robert's journey started with a single phone call. It didn't start with $1 million. It started with a high credit score and a solid business plan. You don't need to be a genius to use seller financing, but you do need to be a person of your word. Trust is the ultimate currency in the world of private business acquisitions. Start by improving your daily habits, educating yourself on leverage, and looking for the for sale signs in your life. Whether it's a car wash, a laundromat, or a small software company, the mechanics of success remain the same. Leverage the assets of the past to build the freedom of your future. Robert's story isn't an outlier. It's a blueprint that is waiting for you to follow it. The question isn't, can it be done? The question is, will you be the one to do it? Take the first step today. Believe in the power of creative investing and go build your own cash flow empire.